Yo is welcome. Right. So we're going to start with a mindfulness exercise. I'm going to right now go to our mindful exercise here. Where is it? Bear with me. Sorry. Those that are on Zoom. Get it set up, but looks like it's not working for me. Oh, here we go. All right. I'm going to take a moment to be present.
Simply observing our breath with a curious mind. And it's completely normal for our mind to get distracted or wander off. Once you notice it's done so, just bring your attention back to the next breath. So to start, close your mouth and allow the breath to just come and go through the nose. Start by noticing the physical sensations of breathing. Track the flow of air through the nose as you breathe. What does it feel like? Which muscles move as you breathe? When does your breath want to inhale, and for how long? Does your breath pause at all at the top of the inhale? When does your breath want to start the exhale, and for how long does it do so? Does your breath want to pause at the bottom of the exhale? After your next breath, gently open your eyes if they were shut. Today's mindful moment is a great example of building our focus muscle by focusing our attention onto our breath. We're building our ability to pay attention. So good work. You're one step closer to planting the next tree. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
All right, thank you for participating in that. And we will now go into our shared agreements. And before I go into that, I want to just give a shout out to the Greater Milwaukee Foundation for allowing us to have this space. Well, we can give a hand clap for the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, Ben Porter, for being here as well in this space. But just thankful because this is a beautiful space, and I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge them for that. Is there anything that you'd like to share as far as what the Greater Milwaukee Foundation is doing? And
So I'm Benjamin, for those that don't know, I manage the health portfolio here on the community impact team. This is our new office space. It's available to you to make use of if you need to host a meeting. They'll have amazing food and drink windows and outputs there. The coffee is passable. And then on the first floor, there's going to be a community hub that will have a few different nonprofits. Versity, JobWorks, Malika, and also a wellness lab. It's going to be available for reservation for wellness programming you may be doing. So feel free to reach out if I can ever, set you up with some space for an event you're doing.
awesome, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, so now we're going to go to our shared agreements, which is to step up and step back, to respect each other's time and expertise, to support each other's learning process, to also elevate the expertise of lived experiences, listen to understand and to support, and then remember our North Star. The health of all people and neighborhoods in Milwaukee. All right. So now we will have our agenda. So we're going to start with introductions and event sharing. Then we'll have our MKE Elevate updates and our equity activity. Then we're going to have some MKE Elevate strategy definition discussion. So we'll go out into work groups and breakout sessions to talk more about some of the strategies and how we could possibly reframe some of the work for this year. As we came across a couple of things that we would like to refine. So next up here, our purpose for our meeting today is to build relationships among this group of community members. We want to give an update about MKE Elevate. Also just to understand our why, because I know there has been a lot of conversations around what is our why when it comes to this space as our safe and supportive communities action team as we meet. So then we will confirm our MKE Elevate Safe and Supportive Communities 2024 strategy definitions, then to explore a possible potential data metrics for strategies. If we can get to that, then we'll just give some updates around social supportive communities work groups that's currently working in that space. So start with introductions. So my name is Robert Walker, and that should have been the first thing I gave when I came on, but I'm Robert Walker. I'm the public health strategist at the City of Milwaukee Health Department. I focus on mental health and community resiliency, but I also am overseeing the Safe and Supportive Communities action team. I'm overseeing it. So we also have our breakout question, our icebreaker, which is, what is your why? What brought you to this action team meeting, and what do you hope to accomplish today? So I'm gonna have you do it in person amongst everyone, but also in person. You can, whoever's next to you, you can give your introduction and ask this question. So you can go ahead and start that now. And those that are in the virtual space, you can You put them in breakout rooms? Okay, so we're gonna have breakout rooms, so you can go ahead and chime in into those breakout rooms and give your introduction and ask, propose this question: what is your why? And what brought you to our action team meeting, and what do you hope to accomplish? So I'll give you about 5 minutes. Oh, you don't have to be shy. Hawaii is, I'm all about service. They did big things. I think that, yes, you're right. They'll say that average salary, if you have that my mother gets to a conference today. Oh, yeah, yeah. I hope it's going good. It's going good. I'll just have something. So like when I'm trying question. So when I'm trying to so okay. Sounds good. Right. All right. Looks like folks are coming back from the Zoom. Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope everyone's conversation was very impactful. And it is okay if you would like to share your why, uh, if you would like. But if not, we will move on. I can take a moment so once everyone is in. Thanks, Aziz. Yep. So he to leave the world a better place than we found it. Awesome. You can also share it in the chat too. You can share your why. Awesome. Or
I'm
is there any?
Stephanie. I'm
Yep.
Stephanie. I can share why.
Awesome. Yep. Go
So
right ahead.
I mean, we're always looking for effective partnerships in addressing some of the issues in our neighborhood. Some of them are, I mean, we have, we've seen many young people die in reckless driving in the Haven Woods neighborhood. And we've seen young people die just walking down the street. So the reckless driving thing is a big issue for us. Also, we do participate in a lot of environmental health initiatives. So we're looking for partnerships there. And, the obvious reason is we want Milwaukee to be the healthiest that it can be. So that seems the obvious. The most selfish reason is I'm looking for good partnerships and good collaborations and effective leadership on some of these issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Welcome.
Also, David Mohammed from the Department of Health and Human Services wrote in the chat, said his why is to work with partners to make Milwaukee a healthy, safe, healing, and thriving community. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. You all are some game changers. I look forward to continue to do the work with you all. All right. So we're going to go right ahead unless anyone else would like to share their why, their name and their affiliation and why they're doing this work. Okay. All right. So let's continue on here to our presentation. Okay, so MKE elevates vision for between for 2023 through 28 is for Milwaukee, where all people are thriving in the safe, healthy, and equitable neighborhoods. And then our mission is for MKE Elevate to support a Milwaukee where all are thriving in safe, healthy, and equitable neighborhoods free from oppression by aligning strategies and building power, partnerships, access to resources, and opportunities for collective advocacy in community identified priority areas. So it seems like a lot of us have a lot of alignment amongst having a healthier and better community in the city of Milwaukee. So grateful that we all are working for the better of the cause. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex to do a equity activity. And so if you could have a moment, I'm gonna turn it over to Alex.
Actually, how did you share that? I see it, bring this one forward.
Guys, bear with us. Sorry. Stop sharing.
Can't get over there. So we're trying to find how to put my screen up. We're getting there. Where all right, so we have a Menti today. So if you are not, I'm gonna share the screen a little bit larger. Familiar with Menti, you're either gonna log in via your phone, there's gonna be a QR code, or by typing in a website and going into code. So this activity is called Community Power Building Organizations. So identifying those organizations to be a part of this specific action team, as well as our steering committee for MK Elevate. So each action team will go through this process, as well as our steering committee. But Robert and Safe Sport Kunis will be the first action team to go through it. So here's the QR code. Otherwise, you can go to menti.com and then type in the code 6734681. And does anybody have any issues with this? All right, good. All right, we're gonna move on. So the reason that we are talking about this today, so in our earlier action team meeting, we went through power sharing and power building conversation. So we talked about where our power was as individuals, where our power was coming on an organizational level, as well as where we saw power imbalances show up in this space as then the action priority in these meetings. And from those responses, I was able to kind of create 4 really large themes that we talking about power imbalance specifically, and one being the sphere of influence. So some people had an abundance of influence. Some felt that they didn't have any influence, and that the people with a lot of influence got a lot of say into decision making in this space. Another was the funding and resources. So who was able to have funding, who had the resources, you know, with the health department being very abundant in resources and funding, what does that show for our power dynamic space? Next is lack of clear next steps. So kind of not understanding what the next steps are when we leave the room as a power imbalance. And the final one was lack of diversity. So who is currently in this space and who is excluded out. The one that we wanted to go through is how do we invite community power building organizations to be a part of this space? And we'll go a little bit into more about what that means compared to other community building. But first, I really believe that before we invite people in, we got to see what our environment is currently in this. And it's really important for us to talk about the difference between fitting in and belonging. So fitting in is becoming who you think you need to be ordered to be accepted. So not showing up as your authentic self when you're participating in meetings because you feel like you have to fit in. But we wanted to create a space that was really rooted in belonging, which is being your authentic self and knowing that no matter what happens, you belong to you. So the first question I have for you guys is, what are ways that we can increase a sense of belonging within these specific meetings?
Is that an open question that we could all chime in on?
Yeah, so you can definitely chime in now if you don't want to answer in on the Minty. So if you had a response, David, you're more than welcome to share.
Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to be using the Menti poll.
No, you don't have to. Nope, I promise. It's however you want to show up.
All right, I would have a shared goal and an objective. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
potential for collective impact in this space. But it would all mean that we would be striving for agreement on a specific outcome goal rather than just institutional alignment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, David. It's a really good point. We have them be lead in community spaces, create ownership and accountability opportunities by listening non-judgmentally. We have one more. We have find simple commonalities, which is a really great point. Using inclusive language, transparency. So kind of what you said with David is like, we all kind of have to have an understanding together, because then we're able to bring our authentic self when we understand the larger goal. We have understanding that we all are on different levels, understanding differences, using tools like this to gain responses throughout the meeting, shared goals and understanding. So we see that there's value to bringing in a sense of belonging versus fitting in this space. So we want to create a space where everyone truly can show up authentically as their self as we work towards some really hard conversations, harder goals. Cultural competency, reach out to community members that aren't often in these spaces, which is a great segue into the difference between a community-based organization, which is kind of what we typically, the nonprofit, non-governmental, charitable organizations that provide specific services to the community. But here today, we're going to be specifically focusing on community power building organizations. And those organizations that are committed to base building and community organizing, often around a specific location, population, or issue, they are deeply rooted and accountable to the communities. So here I think about our really hyper-local organizations who might be targeting a level, a zip code level, who are doing work with their community together to build power amongst each other. And we saw a need with this, especially when I was going through the responses to the power sharing conversation. It seemed like there was a lack of diversity and a fear of influence when we were in this space. So how do we increase that? So the question is one more about what are CBPOs? So these groups build power together with community members to address social determinants of health, like housing, economic security, immigration, or the legal, criminal, and legal system. These groups might, So these groups might be working to change policies, laws, change governing agencies' role in shaping people's daily lives, changing narrative and public discourse on important issues and populations, or change the distribution of power. These groups understand what's going on in the community and are great to connect with as a part of MAP, or our community health improvement process. Kind of hard navigating 2 laptops. So we can't just invite these people to be part of the group, right? If we don't create a space that is very inviting, or we don't even focus on that relationship. So it's really important for us to understand their priorities, to discuss how to share information that protect both groups, to discuss the limitations of what government staff can and can't share and how to share knowledge, to hold regular ongoing meetings with the CPBOs, to acknowledge it may not be appropriate for government staff to participate in campaign committees, to discuss the difference between advocacy and organizing, and to explore how to increase government accountability to communities. So this is a word cloud, and we wanted to use this to be intentional that we would show this word cloud, because we want to make sure that we are hearing the voices and authentically inviting people, not just to be at the table. So with this is a word cloud. If you want to add in whose voices that you want to hear. Minty is an anonymous platform, so I can't see who is adding what. Yep. Okay. Gotta love technology. Oh, I'll share. It kicked me out. All right, so the voices that we have so far are leaders, youth, everyone, community members, quality, social environment. So I'm gonna give about yeah, Black folks, diversity. I have like 30 more seconds if people want to participate. Policymakers, healthcare providers, elders, educational figures, policymakers, the Hmong community, BIPOC. Well, these are going pretty fast. Everyone, Latino community. So we see that, right, Milwaukee is a pretty diverse place, and we truly need authentic to be a part of this space, decision making and power sharing. So, right. So again, this will be shown in every single one of your meetings, just so we are prioritizing voices that we want to be at the table. So we're talking about CBPOs. We want to ask you guys are what CBPOs in Milwaukee should we work on establishing relationships with for this action team? There is no wrong answer. So if you believe that they're a CBPO, then they are. It's who do you think, what organization should really show up in this? We have Fruit of Islam, grassroots organizations. Yeah, yep. Lit. Milwaukee police, health providers, faith communities, and common ground. If someone could put in lit and common ground in the Minty, great, thank you. Heal the Hood, art. Lit. And if you have a connection to art, that would be great. Expo. So I'm gonna put on about 30 seconds for timer. The North Division Alum Group, Project Return, MPS, again, the Milwaukee Public School, about 7 more seconds, HNP, the Hmong American Women's Association, and Culture X Design, and charter schools. So the next question is, which ones are you connected to? And if you could put your initials in the response, that would be helpful. So Robert could connect. What about a 30-second timer? We have Southside Organization. We have someone with the African American Roundtable. Faith groups.
This question only let us submit one response.
Let me see if I can open it up. If you have more responses, and if you want to put them in the chat, I'll grab them from the. Minty is great, but there are some weird quirks it has. We have Safe and Sound, and then the Havenwood Neighborhood Partnerships. So as we're going to move on, you still have the availability to use the chat to add any more power organizations are connected to. The last question I have for you guys today are, what are other community events happening across Milwaukee that this action team can get involved with? So even those who are currently in space today. So these are community meetings, organizational meetings, coalition meetings. We have block clubs. Comment council? Yep, it's the last question. Prevention collection, Havenwood Summers concert series. Crime and safety meetings. Right, if you have any other responses, please put them in the chat. So thank you for this conversation today. We really want to more power with this group and invite a lot more people on to be a part of this space. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it, Alex. We're going to go ahead into our MKE Elevate strategy, refining and definition. So I'm going to, Alex, if you don't mind, not scaring, if you can let me share on my screen. Okay. Bear with me. I'm just trying to get this up. Here, activity. Things up today. Yeah, if you don't mind some assistance. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so safe and supportive communities. We wanted to review our current goals, which for goal one, which is around domestic violence and violence, is to increase efforts increase efforts at all levels to prevent sexual violence. For goal two, for crime and neighborhood safety, we have to support the increase of fostering safe neighborhoods. Goal three is to decrease risk factors for reckless driving. So that is the reckless driving goal overarching. Then goal four is to improve the availability and uptake of behavioral health resources for Milwaukee. So that's mental health goal. Then goal five is to promote efforts in individual, community, societal levels to increase harm reduction methods through the city. So as we look at these, I want you to reflect on the strategies that we chose in our last quarter one meeting, our action team meeting. So we did have a voting on one priority strategy for each area, a priority area. So we want to talk about more of what does the definition, or how do we all see the specific goals as far as the strategy. So for the interpersonal violence strategy for 2024, we voted and agreed on that to develop and implement an effective communication strategy to reduce domestic violence, interpersonal violence in the city of Milwaukee. So this is an interactive conversation. So if you could share, anyone can share, even online in the chat, what do you see, what would be your definition when you see this strategy, statement of strategy?
Hop in, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tristan Gross. I'm with the Comprehensive Injury Center. Yeah, when I think about this, there's a couple of things. One, I think a huge issue is that domestic violence just isn't talked about at larger levels. You know, we are, as a city, we're celebrating a reduction in violent crime, but we've seen a consistent rise in domestic violence instances and domestic violence homicides since 2017. And that conversation I mean, Ashley Lutheran has done a few stories on it in the Journal Sentinel, but that conversation has largely been not happening in media, or I think coming from city leaders. So I think to talk about the fact that domestic violence is happening at a level that we have not seen in the past, and that we need to address it. I think the second thing is, how do we shift conversations from, well, why didn't a person leave, and other victim blaming narratives that make it really difficult for people to connect to domestic violence services. So, or to talk about their experiences as domestic violence survivors. And so really talking about the root causes of what power and control is, and really getting people to understand that the person we should be holding accountable, the person who we should be asking questions to, is the person who's causing harm, and not the person who is experiencing that harm. And then, I think we need to talk about what's available more broadly. There are a number of domestic violence organizations throughout the city of Milwaukee, many of whom have culturally relevant responses to domestic violence. And how are we making sure that community knows that these resources are there for them? So those are I guess the three big things. We need to elevate the conversation and be talking about it. We need to really reduce the amount of victim blaming that's happening and shift accountability to folks who are causing harm, and then making sure that resources are well known to community.
Hey, thank you, Tristan. This is Justin Rivas with the Milwaukee Healthcare Partnership. I just wanted to build on your comment. We convene a group of the sexual abuse nurse examiners, SANE, or forensic nursing examiners from all 4 health systems together, and we meet regularly to discuss. Obviously, the worst case scenario is that victims of domestic violence are presenting in emergency departments, and it's gotten to the level of sexual violence. But to just further elevate his point on how much of an issue it is, and it's just so hard to track at a community level with data because of the just nature of, well, confidentiality once it reaches hospitals and law enforcement, but then also just the challenge of talking about this issue. And it's linked to shelter and housing, which are already challenging issues that are at capacity in our community. So I think really thinking about not just the problem, but the solutions together is a really important point, and one that needs to be elevated in the context, as he said, of data looking better at a community level in terms of homicide rates. We're seeing other forms of interpersonal violence that are prevalent.
And I'll just piggyback off of Justin. Thank you, Justin and Tristan. Very great points that you both made. Quinn Taylor with the Office of Community Wellness and Safety. I'm also a coach here, working with Robert. Supposed to be there in person today, but I'm under the weather, so I'm just recovering. But one of the things I wanted to add was setting clear goals and objectives. Define what you aim to achieve, such as reducing the incidence of domestic violence by a certain percentage, increasing reporting, and raising awareness, making sure that we have measurable objectives, set clear measurable objectives, such as the number of people reached, engagement rates, or change in public attitudes.
Yes, actually, I gotta. Oh. See if I can. Okay. Go ahead.
Check 1 2 1 2. Turn me up in the headphones. Good room.
There we go.
All right, blessings, everyone. Sarita Valmont of I Am Chronically Resilient. I love everything that everyone is discussing, but also too need to tie together the mental health concern of domestic violence as well too. Being a survivor myself, I can go ahead and say that, you know, it's both sides. We need to make sure that we're definitely getting that education out there, but then also too, you know, going back and seeing like, how can we help these people also heal as well? So that's the only other thing that I just wanted to add in there as well too, which I know we have the mental health aspect that we're having covered, but a lot of the stuff is basically piggybacking on top of each other. So we got to be able to go ahead and have those conversations once again, and of course, continue to make sure that they're culturally competent as well.
Go ahead. It might work now.
Yes, okay. No, so I was just gonna go back, going back and forth, I know, following each other. I definitely agree with that because we need to still have awareness and people need to understand where people's minds are of why they are doing something and not to say that we're looking at people as like we're victims. Um, but a lot of things that I know is too, because I do things outside of my job. I'm a social worker with the health department. I participate a lot in right now with my church with mental health awareness. So that's very passionate to me also in awareness. But faith-based is very important too, to put it out in the churches. Sometimes people don't understand that it's more that's going on in the community. That we have to understand, but it is important to educate people too about to understand why a person may want to stay or not to call them victimize them, but we need to understand that because there may be something there to kind of put out there to let another person understand, well, maybe that's not how you should look at it while you're staying or get them help because sometimes we don't know where people's minds are. And I understand the mental health part because I'm really working on that, especially with, again, outside of my job, just let people know that this is real. We don't know if people's minds are from trauma or trap or why people are repeatedly in these situations from my own experience or just seeing people's lives, you know, but we don't want to call them like we're out to get them. But it's still good to be aware and understand why a person is where they're at so people can get the help.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your input. So, we would like, I also have the data team here from the City of Milwaukee Health Department, and they're actually reviewing and how we could be able to really understand what we want to do as a action team in our work groups to how do we measure those your thoughts and your ideas around this space of interpersonal and domestic violence. Is this okay? Is everyone okay? How this is framed? How this strategy is framed? Also, you can provide input as well in the chat from online. Oh, go right ahead.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right, so I'm Allie Reed. I'm with the health department as well. I'm our data director. And as we're going through these goals and strategies, the question that comes to our mind is, what exactly does this group mean by communication strategy? So in order to measure it, we want to know where your head's at, what you're thinking. A lot of the comments I'm hearing today are kind of clarifying that a bit for me, but we are kind of here to observe, to kind of see what you guys want the communication strategy to be focused around. Would it be education, prevention? Is it a media campaign? Like, what kind of things are you guys thinking about? And that'll help us be able to listen and then maybe gather some data or identify places where we can show that you've made improvement areas over the years as a group.
I think some of this is what Quinn Taylor mentioned around setting clear goals and objectives. So, depending on how we define communication strategy, is it like the number of people reached with, a certain social media campaign or things like that? So just wanting to acknowledge that.
Hey, Robert, I have a quick question. A couple months ago, we talked about this in this particular breakout group. We had offered some definition around like who are the audiences that we wanted to reach out to, what was the message that we wanted to get to those folks. Is that information available? Because we had really started to drill in on like what the communication strategy was and some of the outcomes that would be associated with that.
Us.
So I'm not sure who's talking, but I think that we can go back in our notes from the previous meeting and see what those definitions were. I don't think we can pull them up right now because I don't think anyone was jumping to the answer right away. But that's something that we can definitely review as we talk about defining the population, defining the targets and areas that we want to introduce.
And I think a part of that, Deshaun Ewing, Community Advocates Public Policy Institute, I think a part of it also would be data around what's happening in what community. So who's collecting that information, as well as far as those domestic violence situations, as well as sexual assault. That's something I've been tracking personally, just doing open records requests for MPD. But is there a hub or is there someone collecting that on an active and regular basis? Because as of May, there were about 240 sexual assaults from January to May in Milwaukee. And a lot of people aren't speaking on that or directly addressing that. And then there are communities that are harder hit with those issues, which are also suffering from the same things that we're talking about: mental health, substance misuse, all of these other pieces that are all overlapping as we discussed. So I think part of the communication strategy is also how is that data being collected and who is it being shared with?
Thanks, Deshaun. And so with that statement, I think we're going to move on to the next strategy.
Justin had his hand up also.
Justin, you got a last statement about this goal, strategy one?
I just have a few comments, and I know you're trying to move on, Robert. I apologize. But I think to Ali Reed's point in the room, there's different points at which we need data. We just need some baseline community data to be able to even develop the goals and metrics we're trying to hit. And I think that perhaps similar to how we use the Cardiff model in other spaces, kind of triangulating some data sources. So we can use police data and hospital data, and then maybe kind of map hotspots in the community to better understand where that work is. And then I do agree we need metrics around all the communication strategies, but I also want to know the data behind what are some of the solution options. Like I said before, if shelter placements or housing is a potential solution options, we need data on availability and potential referrals and how to get to those solutions too, because I don't think and I apologize, but I mean, just communicating that resources exist and tracking that's excellent. But then because they exist doesn't mean there's actual accessibility to them. So we need to know what are the actual open bed counts, et cetera, so that or apartment placements, et cetera, so that we know what we're actually linking people to has a potential option or opportunity for them.
And then just real quick, being able to quickly respond to trending, to when things are trending, digital media. Right now, with everything happening with Puffy, this is the first time that I can recall that so many people is talking about domestic violence openly and on social media. So just being able to respond and quickly respond as things is trending, I think makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all your feedback. And I'm sure we are taking it all in, and we definitely will talk more about how we can measure and refine goal one. So goal two, we're gonna go right ahead into goal two. So goal two, strategy for collaboration across organizations and sectors to improve neighborhood safety. So what are your thoughts around defining this goal or strategy?
I'm on Zoom, I can chime in on that.
Yes, you can.
I think that would be helpful to, and you might have already done this, so my apologies if you did. I might be a Johnny come lately on some of this, so my apologies. Getting, almost getting like an asset map of all the organizations and who's doing what throughout Milwaukee, and kind of making an assessment of efficacy amongst the organizations and where their strong suits are.
Awesome. Thank you. So for content, we are oh, go ahead, Alex. Okay, I was gonna say for content, we do have work groups currently working in this space. And we have discussed mapping of organizations that is doing the work to increase collaboration, and some are in this space currently. And so we're in the works of what that looks like, far as the scope, and also what are some cross lines of what organizations are doing. So we, if, and what organizations are specifically working on, because then we're able to, if there is any areas that are high of crime, and say a crime in specific zip codes or targets, we'll be able to align or find resources for them specific, for those specific zip codes.
So I currently oversee the harm reduction group for safe and supportive communities. And in our first meeting, it was really important for us to just even establish shared language of what do we mean when we say this, like what goes into that. And I think for this one, it'd be really important to talk about what does it mean to collaborate, like of collaboration. What all goes into that? Is it collaborating with grant proposals? Is it collaborating with events, with social media? So I think that would help if you could define what collaboration meant in this space.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Anyone else have any input around this strategy?
So I think before we move on, I think Alex proposed a question to the group.
Okay.
What is collaboration for you in your spaces? Or what does it look like to actually have a collaborative event for this particular strategy?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm never quite sure with these things. Yeah, good morning. This is Teron Edwards from Fathers Making Progress. As far as what does collaboration look like, I think it looks like being cognizant, I guess kind of doing the legwork, pre-event, and just really understanding what the needs of neighborhoods and communities are, and then being responsive to those needs collectively, based on like what organizations, specialize in and offer. It doesn't necessarily have to be an event with, one person's name or the other on it, or, it could be something that's just done collectively, has everyone's name on it, or that's what we have to do. But basically something that is, that's done, like we show up with the neighborhood instead of for the neighborhood or in the neighborhood, um, so I think those are just really, really strong components of something that's successful.
Good morning. My name is Tanine Rucker. I'm from Safe and Sound, and we collaborate all the time because so collaboration is what we do. We collaborate with the neighborhoods, we collaborate with the youth, we collaborate with other organizations. And one thing that we found with collaborations is it makes it easier. So we have our Wear Orange Gun Violence Awareness Weekend coming up for June 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so with that weekend, we've collaborated with Moms Against Domestic Violence, Moms Against Gun Violence, and we collaborate with our networks, but they collaborate with theirs as well. So it's not just Safe and Sound doing it, but if we're collaborating, whether it's Greater Milwaukee, United Way, everybody has a voice at the table. So everyone is a part of what we're doing. And so collaboration looks different for each organization. We do a lot of footwork. And so we are out in the community and we're handing out flyers and we're talking to people and we're doing surveys. And so we're getting their input from the ground floor. And so we may see you walking down the street and we may say, hey, I'm from Safe and Sound. Do you have a few minutes? I want to talk to you about something. And so they'll go back and say, oh, I met these people from this organization. And so collaboration looks different for each organization, but working together, it reaches everybody because each organization whether it's people on the ground or whether it's people up high, we all reach someone. And so in the middle, there's where we find that collab that makes it all better. It makes it grow out kind of like a tree with branches. And so we're all leaves and we're filling up that tree.
Blessings, everyone. Sarita Valmont from I'm Chronically Resilient. Just to piggyback off what you were also saying as well, too, is also building that trust and also being able to see these similar people as well. I know oftentimes when I'm like doing different events and things, when people see me like, oh, I saw you here, oh, I saw you there. So they're building that familiarity, but also understanding too that I'm here. Because I think oftentimes we have the situations happen where people just come into the neighborhood when something is happening and then that's it. You don't see them. And so then therefore people don't have that trust factor, like, oh, you just were here for PR stunt. And that's not what we're looking for. We're really looking, say for myself, that's not what I'm looking for. It's like, I want to make sure that people understand that, yes, you do have a person that is here for you, that can give you the tools, that can also assist you, and that can also, be able to share like, hey, here's another person now that you can be able to go ahead and work with as well too. If I'm telling you that this person's good, then they're also going to be like, okay, Sarita says this person's good, I can go ahead and work with this person. So it's really being able to go ahead and continue to build that trust, in turn to be able to go ahead and build in the community.
Awesome. Great input. Is there any, I know there were some comments in the chat also, and so we will capture those as well, but we're going to move right along if anyone else, if anyone did not have any other comments around the strategy.
Hi everyone, my name is Susie Shainrock. I work at Impact. You might know us because of the Impact 211 phone line. I just wanted to add, I work on this new initiative called Impact Connect, which essentially allows providers to communicate with each other and send referrals on behalf of their clients. So instead of sending your client to 211 and telling them figure out the services, we're trying to make it so if I work at a housing agency, I have my client in front of me, I can send them to this food pantry. I get data back. I know if they made it there. I know what happened. So we're trying to build this. So this is kind of a shameless plug, but if any of you work for agencies that would be interested in joining this network, I have business cards and things. I think it could address this strategy as well, because the idea of this is that we're partnered with nonprofits, we're partnered with government, we're partnered with the health systems. And the idea is if we all share this data and we actually all provide wraparound care to a client, we can better collaborate and we can better meet those clients' needs. So again, I'm Susie, Impact Connect. Let me know if you want to connect. Thank you.
Awesome. So definitely make sure to see her after. All right. So we're going to go ahead to the next. You can continue to put it in the chat of any other definitions that you may have for this specific strategy. But we're going to go to the next one, which is around reckless driving. Now, just wanted to inform you that this strategy and the overall goal 3 for reckless driving will be transitioning to built-in environment. So those that have a interest in being in that space, we will be transitioning because it makes more alignment of around reckless driving in this action team than in the built-in environment action team. So we're going to move right along. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or our team. So the next one is around goal 4, which is, oh, I'm sorry. Transition to built-in environment. All right. Okay, so goal 4, safer strategy for this year is to increase school-based mental health programming, because originally we had just to increase school-based mental health, including student-led initiatives to improve mental health. But overall here is just talking about programming, and also to improve mental health in the city of Milwaukee. So how do we define this strategy? How would we all define this strategy?
So I'm a former NPS teacher. And some of the schools are in collaboration with the Milwaukee County Mental Health. I know Hopkins Street is one of them, Hopkins Lloyd. And I believe maybe our Avenue, could be wrong about that one, but I definitely know they are in Hopkins Lloyd. And my thought is, why aren't they in every school, right? Because they do it like, I guess it's some kind of grading point. Um, you guys can probably guess I was a teacher that went to principal a lot because I asked too many questions. So my in my mind, it didn't make sense, because if we have it in like maybe one school and we're saying that this is a school that serves our underserved community, right? So then why aren't all of the schools in a part of this mental health? Because I know for me, given the day or time we use the Woodstock test that we give to the kids, give it to me on a Monday. I'm probably gonna score very high, and you'll say, oh, she has whatever needs, right? And so we're not fair in how we're assessing the students. And again, some of it is home based. I was one of those teachers who always used to say, how are you doing, before I ask for homework, before I ask, well, why didn't you do this? How are you doing? Because we don't realize it may be a war zone for that child just to get from their front door to your classroom. And this is the reality of their life. And so we do know that mental health exists, but how do we change the narrative of in the school, or like, Johnny's just having a bad day, right? I'm a boy mom, woo woo to the boy moms. And sometimes my boys, they boys. They boys. That's all I'm gonna say. And I have one this morning, perfect example. He was like, Mom, I think I lost my beats. Like, you in school worried about a beat? I'm sure we can probably find it, but how's your day going? We'll find the beat. And the little earplugs, what he's talking about. We're going to find those. But how is your day going? I just dropped you off 10 minutes ago. You worried about a beat. But see, their minds are somewhere else, right? And so we have to figure out a way how to get mental health across all of the schools and not just in one. And so what does that look like from a city point of view, right? How do we get that done?
You have the youth risk behavior survey, but that's not really that great, because they're not going to, I don't want to say every kid, but obviously there's not a lot of truth telling, or they're nervous to tell the truth for many good reasons. But I guess I would pose a question to this group is like, how would you look at like where the most need is for mental health? Like if you're looking at MPS, or how would you assess it? Because we know it's an issue, right? I mean, there's so many kids living and breathing mental health issues right now, but like how would you look and decide where you would need those services the most, and how can we show that through data too?
And while we get comments, Karen Case from the Office of Children's Mental Health put in a comment that says she would change the wording to increase mental health services in schools, school-based mental health / student initiatives.
And so, Robert, oh, I'm sorry. I'll just quick explain what I wrote. This is Karen. So those are two different ways to address mental health in schools. So I added to it that when you're talking about school-based mental health programs, those are bringing mental health services into schools. So professionals, counselors, therapists. Student-led programs are like sources of strength and raise your voice, et cetera, Red Gen. And they're both excellent ways to address mental health inside your schools.
And Sarita Valmont again from I'm Chronically Resilient. A couple pieces. One thing is that I know we're talking about like the student led, but also we need to be looking at the teachers and also the administration as well too, where I know we're kind of focusing a lot more on the children, which yes, we definitely need. but also where is some of this coming from? Because if an administrator is coming in with some issues that now is being basically, brought on to other people, it's a lot of projection that happens to go on at times. That can be also very difficult too. So we do need to kind of look at everything as a whole. And going back to us talking about children, I know even looking at the ACE scores, that could also be something that could potentially be beneficial. But at the same token, once again, it's still hard because we don't know if children are going to be able to go ahead and give without being concerned that they're not going to be taken out of the environment that they're in. Granted, it might be chaotic, but of course they're not aware of, as the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. So if they're used to being in that type of environment, we're now looking at, like complex PTSD, like all these different types of things. And so being able to, once again, provide additional tools that are culturally competent as well. Like, for example, I'm finishing up an integrated semantic trauma therapy certification, say that 3 times fast. But that is something that it would definitely be beneficial for not only like children, but for everyone. So being able to go ahead and look at new ideas and being able to say, hey, how can we go ahead and implement this? Which I know, unfortunately, a lot of things are behind in MPS, just being real. So it's like being able to go ahead and figure out how can we get these things in, because it's nice that we can have all these beautiful shiny objects, but if we're not able to go ahead and actually get them implemented properly, now we're kind of digging a bigger hole for ourselves once again. So Sarita Valmont, I'm chronically resilient.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think Sarita brought up a good point. It's like it says increase school-based mental health programming, but is this a group that can really do that for MPS or for any other school system versus acknowledging what that system already looks like? So just be mindful of that as we think of like ways to define this and what's actually attainable for this group.
So yeah, I was gonna just say, it came back to me about collaboration. I know a lot of things are going on now with NPS, but it is going to the leaders and kind of bringing that up to them too, with the idea of what's going on or the strategy or what you all are trying to do with MKE Elevate is kind of presenting it and kind of getting ideas, even piggybacking what you said with the teachers, opening up to them like, okay, is anything going on in your home, or what can we do to help you? Because as an individual, they say you can't help anyone else if you can't help yourself first. So it's more of going to the leaders within the NPS, but reaching out to them and trying to figure out like what's going on or what are you seeing, and maybe the data can be built in that type of way to see what is what they say the root, what is the problem, or what you see within the students, or what's going on within the teachers or leaders.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So much rich discussion and thoughts. But because we have about 7 minutes, we want to go to this we don't have time for this last strategy discussion around the definition of our safe and supportive communities goal strategy 4-5. And you can continue to give your input to all the strategies in the inbox, or you can share with us at a later time. But for the sake of time, we'll go ahead into our goal 5 strategy, which is to coordinate. Originally, it was to coordinate communications to the community about the supply of or overdose prevention and harm reduction tools to implement harm reduction initiatives in the city of Milwaukee. A suggestion from expert.
Yes, yeah, forward the slide.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. Sorry about that. I'm trying to multitask. There we go. The suggestion was to coordinate communications to the community or harm reduction service providers as they work to prevent overdose deaths and reduce health risks often associated with drug use in the city of Milwaukee. So I posed the question: what are your thoughts around the definition of strategies potentially? And Alex, if you want to give an update as well, because the contents of the work group that we have started doing work groups in this space as well. That Alex is leading that, so we'll give more content to what we're doing in that space.
So first, if anybody is interested, please see me after the meeting. We've had 2 meetings so far for our harm reduction work group. And the first meeting, like I said, we had to really define what we meant. And that grew into a huge list of definitions. And we landed on one that was encompassing basically how do we keep people alive long enough to either seek treatment or just at least use safely. And I think that had a range of items in it. And since then, we were like, yeah, we can provide coordination. We started a list of different providers who provide Narcan, testing strips, other things, but we realized there was a lot of barriers in place. One of those barriers was specifically who has access to what harm reduction tool. So currently needles are decriminalized in the state of Wisconsin. And then when you look at the demographics of who use needles versus who use pipes, there was an equity issue. And so the group really wanted to work on some city ordinances that would make it more accessible for people to have the right to them to live another day. And we haven't really talked about the data piece or component, but I think that we have some really great metrics in terms of like, there's a lot of open metrics on like how many overdoses that we're seeing per year. I think one thing we can look at is like who's doing what in the community, because there's also some really cool grassroots organizations who are driving around in vans handing out supplies. There's CMS who is operating their own vending machines. There's the county who's operating. So that's kind of where we're at as a group. So we're trying to right now write a policy brief that would be presented to my boss and then the commissioner. They're really excited for this work, but definitely really open to what metrics would make sense to see progress in this space.
All right, thank you. Any, after hearing the content of what the work group is working on, is there any like definitions, any comments or thoughts that you all have around this strategy?
So just to address the there was a question about you speaking. They couldn't really hear you. So that's cool. And so what he was saying is that some of those methods may be ineffective as they continue to condone the use, and the importance of really getting to the issue of trauma that they experience that lead them to why they use that kind of. Okay. And so there is also a question online that said, have we considered training providers in SBIRT? SBIRT is screening, brief intervention, referral to treatment. And so in the school system, when trained with the WISH Center, providers are reimbursed $250 for use. Is there a way to look at this type of model of intervention to support the supply of overdose prevention and harm reduction tools?
That was in me, but he got it out about the handing out the syringes because I was thinking that was condoning people. So I'm glad that came out because we are in an open space. Um, Another thing came to me with mental illness because I something else I do on the side. A lot of things is I believe when it comes to trauma or mental illness, people cannot afford their medication or they don't have support. So why that's how I kind of look at mental illness when it comes to you see people walking around, they doing drugs or talking to themselves. Sometimes people don't have support or they can't afford medication because we know some things that we see are chemically imbalanced. Um, that kind of came to me, but I do agree with what he's saying because I don't feel comfortable either with handing somebody something to say this is the more of that you won't die or whatever happened. I don't condone that either, but you know everybody got their own side to it, but that's how I look at more affordable medication and people having support. Because some people don't have support when it comes to mental illness or substance abuse.
And piggybacking, hey y'all, Sarita Valmont, I'm chronically resilient. Piggybacking off of what you guys are also saying too, is also looking at holistic levels because of the fact of, you know, talking about like prescriptions and different things like that. That also can be adding to the situation as well too. So looking at nutritional factors, looking at you know, once again, the mental health aspects of things as well too, being able to go ahead and giving the additional resources, but once again, also too, being able to meet people where they're at. Because I know that's one of the biggest things too. Because I mean, I'm gonna just say it like this: we all have something we're addicted to. It might be something that's healthy, it might be deemed healthy or deemed unhealthy, but it's being able to go ahead and being able to meet a person and like, hey, I see what, you know, I see you, you know, and how can I be able to go ahead and assist you during that situation? So, Sarita Valmont, I'm chronically resilient.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you all so much for your candid content and feedback and thoughts. I know we're at time. We thank you. We will gather all of your. We are gathering all of your feedback and notes, and we will come back in our next action team meeting to talk about if you know what we've had, how we will reframe some of these strategies and having matrices and baseline data for the strategies. So so normally I send out a follow-up email, so I will be sending that out to the action team. If you are not an implementation partner, please, there is a click the link to go to the forum. We definitely encourage those that are not signed up to go ahead and sign up with us, so we can continue to collaborate to do this great work and this great task. And our next action team meeting will be in August 2024. So I will send invite that may already has, you know, have been out, but just we'll make sure that you all get that invite for that too.
May need to repeat that, Robert, for the people online.
Yep. So what was said by Ali is that we will be keep getting in touch with those that have gave feedback on refining of the strategies and strategies, so we can talk about measuring and metrics and baseline data that you may have that could help us to support the strategies that we have in place. So thank you all for did I say that appropriately? Okay, awesome. So thank you all again for coming. I don't take it for granted that you all are here, and look forward to email from me. And thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.